The ATO is all about going, we don't really care how it's going to get paid, we just want to know when it's getting paid. One big thing at the moment that I'm noticing is that the ATO is come down really hard on money that are owing to the ATO. So today we're talking about why the hell the ATO is becoming so hard on dealing with small businesses. Why are they not providing as much leg room or not as much space or just options and availability that they had in the past?
If we're not growing, you're not growing.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name's Nathan Ridney, I'm the Profit Generator, and I'm all about business. I'm all about serving you guys with the information you need. You can become better at business so that you have a business that serves you instead of you being a slave to the business and having a business that you absolutely hate. I've been an accountant since I'm 19. Wow, that is like a lot of years to be an accountant. And of course, I'm in business and I'm a business owner. So I'm well versed at speaking anything about business, from today's topic like ATO debt right through to some like general business stuff. Running a business is so tough, and I tell you what, the economic climate out there is horrible. Winter is here, it is tough, and the market is just a really horrible place to be in at the moment. And if you are not in control of your finances, I dare say that it's going to be even tougher for you. So today is all about ATO debt, and as a tax agent, I have seen this in the last few months, an absolute aggressive approach by the ATO to not really be as flexible as they had been in the past. And when I talk about aggressive, I'm talking about where we can't get payment arrangements, we cannot get interest remitted, and the ATO, I don't think they've ever made so many phone calls in the past. I've had clients where I've been talking to them about, hey, what can you do to get your ATO debts under control and manageable? And it's lodging bazzers on time, and the ATO was almost like non-existent. And a lot of clients, not a lot, but a few that I do know that have ATO debt, I think almost thought they've got away with it, where the ATO is not calling me about these monies I owe, and we're talking about maybe 4 or 5 years of very much a lot of ATO debt unpaid, not dealt with. And now all of a sudden the ATO has come out of the blue and just applying the pressure on these businesses to pay their taxes. What is the landscape? What does it look like at the moment? And it's a valid question, and I think a serious one that we all need to consider. So $105 billion of unpaid taxes could be anything from big companies to small companies, from mum and dads to individual tax returns, to someone who owes $100 to someone who owes thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. All different types of taxpayers, anything from income tax to GST to withholding taxes and all the other different taxes that we have, I guess, in our federal tax system. $105 billion is the biggest it's ever been in history. And my own commentary on it would be that if I was the commissioner of the ATO, I'd be pretty embarrassed about the fact that I've got it so out of control. If we go back to 2019, that debt was a whole lot smaller. And when we talk about debts that the ATO have, they really class it into monies that easily collectible versus monies that they just know they will not get. And when I talk about monies that will not get, that's going to be because the debts are so big that those amounts will go into a position where the business or the company that owes the money will go into liquidation, and they might only get, say, 10 cents on every dollar of that amount owing. So of the amounts that they know is collectible, it's around about $46 billion. So of that $46 billion, they know that's the low-hanging fruit. They know that's the cash that they can collect. As much as no one likes paying taxes, it's just something that we know that we have to do as a society. We need taxes to run the country, we need taxes to provide services, because otherwise who's going to do the policing? Who's going to pay the police? Who's going to pay for hospitals and what have you? Now, I'm not going to get into the politics of whether that cash is paid, is used wisely or not, but the reality is we have a civic duty to pay us our taxes. And the reality is that there is a number of businesses, taxpayers out there who are not paying their dues. And the ATO, it doesn't like it. They want to collect that money. As I was saying, $46.4 billion is considered collectible debt. And so if we go back to 2019, it was pretty much half of that. right? So it was only around about, say, $23 billion of taxes. So $46 billion of considerable collectible debt is pretty huge. And a good chunk of that $46 billion is a number of small taxpayers, small businesses, right? The ATO, they want to collect those monies. They want to get that cash. And that's why they've come down so hard. And I would say that it's probably from the top end, from the government itself saying, hey, we want to get that money in and do what you can. Don't be as lenient as you have been in the past. So if we go back 12 months ago, we could get payment arrangements quite easily. We could basically do the right thing and work out everything that's owing, pay the total less any interest or fines, and then call the ATO up and say, hey, we've paid the principal debt, can you just remit the interest, forgive the interest that you've charged and forgive the penalties? Look, the client went through, this is a scenario, 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 and can you do the right thing, remove that debt? Now that whole same process, like when we're trying this now with our clients, we're finding that the ATO is saying, we don't care, they should have paid it. And I don't know why in that scenario they are not forgiving that interest, but any scenario, the ATO is not about going, well, how are you going to pay it? They just want to know when you're going to pay it. We just want to get our cash. And that's my experience at the moment as a tax agent and what I'm seeing, which basically means that as a business, you have less opportunities to get it right with the ATO. And it's really important that because they know that this debt is so huge, the biggest it's ever been in history, that they need to do something about it. And the ATO approach is quite deliberate in making phone calls. As I talked about earlier, I've had a client that we've lodged every BAS on time and he's never paid a single payment of his BAS in the last 5 years. And it's funny, I'd say to this client, hey, you've got to do something about this, you've got to pay it. And as much as that client is paying their taxes on time or lodging their BASs on time rather, but they're not paying them, the ATO had been it's like they just didn't exist. But now it's like they've come out of the woodwork and they're doing a lot of phone calls and applying a lot of pressure. So the reality is that whilst for a lot of business owners, they've known these debts are there and they've been quite comfortable knowing that the ATO wasn't going to come after them. But now that has changed and the ATO is actively pursuing collecting those monies from everything from letters to phone calls. And then when that doesn't work, they're then going further in actually then taking action. So the next thing I would say is who is at most risk of being in a position where the ATO just won't work with you to pay these taxes down. If you're a taxpayer where you have lodged BAS or ATOs, your tax returns late, you're more likely to be in a position where the ATO is not going to want to work with you to come up with a payment arrangement or some sort of system pay it. They're just going to want the cash up front. If you're in a position where you are filing your payroll through single touch payroll and then not paying super on time or paying any super, they're less likely to work with you to do a payment arrangement. They're just going to want payment now. And what's next as well is that when the ATO is not seeing you taking action of what you need to do as a company, they're going to start making you personally liable for those taxes. And so the way they do that is they issue this thing called a directive penalty, also known as a DPN. When they issue these directive penalty notices, they are essentially making this debt personally liable from the company to you personally. So you really don't want to do that. And particularly if you've lodged your business activity statements or any tax returns late, those amounts get completely differently in that total amounts of debt owing compared to those that were lodged on time. So it's really important to lodge BASs, your tax returns all on time as much as you can. Now, the next target, looking at who the ATO is most likely going to hit at a business owners and apply the pressure on, especially those who have a pattern of non-compliant behavior. So when we start putting all these things together and we start looking at whether you're not lodging BASs on time or you're not committing to the payment arrangement you've committed to or you agreed to, or not paying your staff super on time or not even processing super, when all this stuff collects, the bigger the bubble, the bigger the amount of things that you're not doing, the bigger the bubble goes and the bigger the explosion is going to be when the ATO comes along and pierces it. So it's really important to get on top of that. So even if you've got a history in the past where you're behind, the best thing to do now is to take action and actually seek out the appropriate assistance and help to get it up to date. So that could be anything from seeing a bookkeeper to help you get your accounts and your affairs, your bookkeeping up to date. It could be getting a bookkeeper or an accountant to lodge those tax returns, or if the scenario is really bad and there's a lot of money owing to the ATO, the next step is actually seeking out and speaking to the right people, the right advisors to get the right information. The worst thing you can do is knowing that you've got all these debts here of unlodged tax returns, or even knowing what your debt is and doing absolutely nothing about it. When the ATO says our time frame's here and we want to do action now, you have a very small amount of time to work out what your options are. So I would suggest that there might not be much you can do from what's happened in the past, but it's about what you're going to do going forward. Reach out and start taking the right actions, maybe even getting your records up to date, or speaking to an accountant, or maybe even speaking to someone in the insolvency space. I've got really good contacts in the insolvency space that suit different types of personality and businesses. Having a chat with them means that you then know what your options are. But the worst thing you can do is doing nothing. The reality is that the ATO, they're coming down hard. From 1 July, a directive from the government is that any interest on any ATO amounts owing, that interest won't be tax deductible from 1 July 2025. Now you're paying interest and it's not tax deductible. And the interest rate, it's not a cheap rate. It's still pretty much market rates plus a bit more, like a personal loan. I would be even saying that if you want to make that interest tax deductible, maybe you've got to look at taking out a loan and paying that loan off, and then at least that way that interest is tax deductible. But if that's not an option for you, you need to start looking at what you can do. Because if you haven't got the money to pay it, like I said before, the ATO is all about going, we don't really care how it's going to get paid, we just want to know when it's getting paid, and we get the cash in the account, and then we'll leave you alone. The reality is, if that was your data, you'd be wanting to know how you're going to get paid too. And just like any business, you're going to go for the easier debts first to get paid. And if you're a small business, you're probably an easy one that they can target and probably apply the pressure on you, as opposed to and get further ahead than maybe a bigger business that they have to have a few more layers to get through to get that money. So it's not all doom and gloom. There are things you can do. It's just a matter of really having a conversation with those advisors that are in your life. So the next thing you do is, if you're someone that's behind on tax, behind on your super payments, you're worried about your personal tax liability, or simply unsure about where you stand, the worst thing you can do is delay or ignore any ATO correspondence, delay taking any action. My final word would be, get trusted advice, don't take risky shortcuts, and avoid the poor advice. Seek out people who know what they're talking about, and not the local accountant that, all the tradies go to because he gets my tax bill down, we don't have to pay any tax. If it's someone like that, I would say probably avoid them. But find the right person that can tell you the reality of the truth of what it is. The truth today might actually hurt, and it might be killing you to hear what has to be said. Until you take that action and know where you stand, it's going to make tomorrow, the weeks forward, be better dealing with it today than not dealing with it tomorrow. So it was a little bit of a sort of downer sort of conversation today on the podcast. They're coming down hard on ATO debt and they're collecting, and there's not a lot of room to move. So really, if you can't pay that monies off, or no matter what's happening, you need to have a look at what's going on and seek out advice. Now, personally, guys, if you are in a position like that and you do want to reach out to myself, by all means, please get in touch with us. Please leave a comment, find us on our website, and our details are always on our page there. Please reach out to us, have a chat, and then we can help you get to where you need to be, so that all that stress, all that fear, all those problems, the anxiety you have about ATO debt can go away, especially when the ATO is providing hard on the phone calls, hard on the letters. Guys, thank you for tuning in to today's video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. There's some really good content we've got on our other videos, talking about general business, talking about how you can improve your business. It's not all doom and gloom of ATO stuff. We talk about some fun stuff as well. But it's all about business, and like I said at the start of the podcast, it's about how I can help you become better in business, so you have the business that serves you and the business life that you love, that you can be proud of. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.